Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori in for Hashtag the U-Word. It's Tuesday, September the 7th. This is Africa 54.
United Nations video footage shows a growing humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia. Disabled fashion designers in Mali show off their creations. And bullets make art, not war, in Chad.
New video from the World Food Programme reflects the severe humanitarian situation in Tigray, with supplies of food aid running out and the United Nations warning that a de facto blockade is bringing millions to the brink of famine. David Doyle reports.
Loaded onto the backs of camels among the last stocks of food aid in conflict-hit northern Ethiopia. The footage released by the World Food Programme reflects the severe humanitarian situation in Tigray, and it's people like mother of six Lete Mariam who are paying the price.
I couldn't sleep at night or think straight in the day thinking about what to feed my kids. I still think about how to provide for my kids.
Thousands have been killed and more than 2 million forced to flee their homes since the war broke out 10 months ago. Now the United Nations warns that a de facto blockade is bringing millions to the brink of famine. The WFP video was filmed at the end of August in northwestern Tigray. Sachin Tate is a WFP staff member in the area.
We don't have any food stocks at the moment to plan with or to distribute. Whatever we have is currently being distributed or has already been distributed.
More aid has since materialized. 100 trucks covering 3,500 metric tons of food and other supplies arrived on Sunday. But the WFP called that a drop in the ocean and says that 100 trucks need to be arriving every day to meet the needs of the population. A spokesperson for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has dismissed allegations that the Ethiopian government is blocking food aid. The UN has called on all parties to the conflict to allow the movement of supplies into the region. It says 5.2 million people, or 90% of Tigray's population, urgently needs humanitarian assistance. That includes 400,000 already facing famine conditions. The world body has also warned that the spread of fighting to the neighbouring Amhara and Afar regions has exacerbated the crisis, uprooting at least 300,000 more people and meaning another 1.7 million need food aid.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. West African heads of state are scheduled to hold a virtual summit Wednesday to discuss the coup in Guinea, according to a spokeswoman for the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS is threatening sanctions over the ouster of President Alpha Conde, who was serving a controversial third term after changing part of the constitution to allow it. The soldiers who seized power in Guinea have consolidated their takeover with the installation of army officers at the top of the country's 8 provincial regions. Coup leader Mamadi Doumbouya, a former officer in the French Foreign Legion, is promising a transitional government of national unity and a new era for governance and economic development. For more perspective on the coup in Guinea, joining us today live via Skype is Nyaka Lagoke, an assistant professor of history and Pan-African studies at Lincoln University in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. Professor Lagoke, thank you for joining us on Africa 54. Now, what is your take on this situation in Guinea? Should we have seen this coup coming?
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you very much, Vincent, for this opportunity. And yes, that was something that was expected. It was anticipated. Because Alpha Conde, the deposed president, has changed the constitution. It was a very unpopular decision, even though he was doing some great works and trying to rebuild the country.
Now, we have mentioned earlier that ECOWAS leaders are meeting virtually today to impose sanctions. They had threatened sanctions and perhaps to figure out the best way to put pressure on those soldiers. But from the history of that region and military takeovers, do these kind of actions ever have any effect?
The sanction may impact the lives of the people, but people have to also look at the fact that in Africa today, there is a rising and growing strong consciousness, and then many people in Africa are tired of presidents who change the constitution to stay there against the will of the people and contrary to what themselves they have promised, because I remember Alpha Conde saying that he was not going to change the constitution. So if the leaders abide by the rules and the constitutions, and the leaders meet the needs of the people, there is no need. I think they can reduce the risk of being overthrown, by the military. Yeah. So they can take any decision, but the military will be there, and maybe they're not going to stay there for a very long time, and then they're going to organize a transition and maybe organize election for a civilian to take over.
Professor Lagoke, though, is the military a solution? I mean, should the military be always in waiting to, get in when the civilian president is not performing well, or what should be the best solution?
It's a difficult question. I will not say that I'm in favor of the military, but I'm explaining why the military can take over. Yeah. So, not all the soldiers. There are some leaders who have the interests of their countries at heart, and Thomas Sankara was one of them who came to power through a revolution, and then Rawlings was there. Despite their missteps. They contributed to advance their countries, to take the country to the next level. So in this case, it could be a popular uprising. It can be the people organizing. But so far, when a country is failing and the people, the opposition, everyone is defeated, by the ruling government, the army as an institution can step in order to restore order. Yeah. I'm just explaining. I'm not saying that it should be like that.
Yeah, and we know that quite a number of leaders actually have military background, especially in West African region. But we've seen this military takeovers in Chad in recent months or years, Mali. We saw that in Sudan even way before. We saw that in Zimbabwe. Now, somehow saying perhaps this should worry us, that there is a kind of a progress or a degeneration of democratic processes where increasingly we are seeing the militaries being involved in this kind of takeovers. What's your take on that?
Yeah, again, it's the same thing. When the military take over in some of those countries, we have to see that as a consequence of the bad governance or the way the leaders who in power are governing the countries. Ibrahim Keita in Mali was a failed leader. And then, so even in the case of Burkina Faso in 2014, it was a popular uprising. And then when there is a popular uprising, the army can step in. This is what I'm saying. And then in the case of Burkina Faso, the army did the right thing. They organized the transition, and then they organized the election. And today we have a president who is there in power in Burkina Faso.
Thank you. We just hope that things turn out well. Thank you very much, Professor. That's Nyaka Lagoke, is an assistant professor of history and Pan-African studies at Lincoln University in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. Now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is welcoming the decision to place former President Jacob Zuma on medical parole due to his poor health. Prison authorities say Zuma, who is serving a 15-month sentence in Escort prison for contempt of court, underwent unspecified surgery last month at an outside hospital where he had been sent for observation. He remains in the hospital with more operations planned. The 79-year-old's eligibility for medical parole follows a medical report received by the Department of Correctional Services. Addressing the media, Ramaphosa said the African National Congress wished Zuma a quick recovery.
We've also received and taken note of the decision by the Correctional Services, National Commissioner to release Comrade Jacob Zuma from incarceration on medical parole. We welcome this. We've heard that he is not well, and we'd like to wish him quick recovery as he is restored back to his home to be with his loved ones.
Zuma was specifically jailed for defying a constitutional court order to give evidence at an inquiry investigating high-level corruption during his 9 years in office until 2018. Now, not too far from there, disabled fashion designers have long struggled against discrimination, especially in developing countries such as Malawi. To combat the problem, Malawian fashion brand House of Zandria organized the country's first fashion show for people with disabilities. Lamik Masina reports from Blantyre.
21-year-old Ruth Chirwa went into fashion and design industry 4 years ago after her dream to become a pilot failed.
Because at that time I had no school fees for a piloting course. What the well-wisher could manage at that time was to pay me for a fashion and design course. I had no option, and when I started, it was not that easy for me.
Chirwa, who now owns the fashion brand Upis Designs in Zuzu, a city in North Malawi, says discrimination has kept her from gaining more customers and promoting her designs.
People look down on me. They think I cannot make nice outfits. They think because I am disabled, I cannot manage what they want. So it has really affected me. And as a result, this has affected exposure of my products.
She recalls an incident when a potential customer who was attracted to an outfit worn by her friend refrained from buying after noticing that Chirwa, who made the outfit, was disabled.
So by the time when she entered my shop and saw me, she was seemingly very disappointed and did not expect that I was the one who made the outfits. She was disappointed with my physical appearance and returned without pressing any order.
Though disappointed, Cyril did not give up. On Saturday, she was among 60 participants at Malawi's first fashion show for people with disabilities, which the House of Zandria, a Malawian fashion brand, organized in Blantyre. Organizers said the All Shades of Beautiful show was aimed to address some of the challenges people with disabilities in Malawi face in exposing their talents and creativity.
So I thought, okay, let me create a platform and give these people a chance to show people that having a disability is not having an inability, but they're also able to do amazing things, even more than what other people can do as well.
And plans are being made to help them sell their outfits without fear of discrimination.
And in the long run, we want to create a hub where all these people can bring their things to that hub and people can come through and see and buy. And we already have a market, so we are creating that market for them so they don't have to go through the struggle of finding customers. Advertising would do all that for them.
People with disabilities make up 11% of the Malawi population, according to the country's 2018 census. But many of them are ultra poor, largely because of discrimination in employment. Many complain they cannot get help from money lending institutions because of their appearance. The Malawi government says it is working to address that.
We have the cash transfer program, which we also focus very much on the chiefs to make sure that when they are retargeting, they've got not to leave persons with a disability. Because sometimes at a village level, they let them down without even retargeting them.
Galiati said the government has also asked money lending institutions to prioritize entrepreneurs with disabilities like Chirwa and to promote their businesses. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Blantyre, Malawi.
Acclaimed contemporary artist Parole employs used bullets to create messages of peace in Chad, a country recently threatened with insecurity. Clara Frank has more.
Shaded against the midday sun, Apollinaire Gidimbaye sits hunched over boxes of bullets. From handgun rounds to .50 caliber shells, most of this ammunition has seen action. But Gidimbaye, a renowned visual artist in Chad, is seeking to give them a second life, not as weapons of war, but to create a message of peace.
Let's try to sit around a table to manage our problems without war. That's why I try to work with spent shells and other war materials to give a rebirth, a metaphor of what shells can do instead of war and killing. I use the same shells that have left women braved to talk about peace as a kind of remission.
Also known as Doff, the 38-year-old is one of Chad's most accomplished contemporary artists. He's a tireless collector of miscellaneous objects, and his works have incorporated a range of recycled materials, including electric components, plastic fragments, and rusted machinery. But it wasn't until 2016, when his North Central African homeland was facing a renewed insurgency, that he began working with bullets, shaping them into flowers, mountains, and faceless human beings. These, Girimbaye says, are the silhouettes of the nameless millions who have died in wars across the Sahel.
All those who fall during the war, whether on the side of our friends or our enemies, what do we do with them? Behind these people who are dead, there are families, widows, orphans who spend their time crying. And this generates other hatreds. Today we find child soldiers, street children, children in slavery in all camps. If only their parents had not died in war, would these children still be forced into child labor? No.
Chad's longtime ruler, Idriss Déby, was killed in April while visiting troops fighting rebels. Since then, his son, Mahamat Idriss Déby, has maintained a fragile peace. Insurgent groups have been invited to the capital, N'Djamena, to participate in peace talks. Armed with his soldering iron and blowtorch, Girimbaye says his anti-war message is more relevant than ever. Clara Frank, VOA News.
Well, it appears that the masks will be with us for a while longer, but even though our faces are covered, we can still smile. VOA's Anna Nelson follows a photographer who's taking pictures of New Yorkers with their masks on, capturing people's smiles when you smile with your eyes from all walks of life.
That's part of what excites me to go out now and be selective about which kind of mask. But I think what makes the photo great is the smile of the person. You know, they could all be surgical masks, and I think what makes the photos interesting is the sincere smile. When COVID-19 came to New York City, I guess that was mid-March, people started wearing masks, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of eye contact happening or engagement. And I thought to myself, we can still see smiles. I think I had an interaction with a stranger on the street, and I smiled at them with my mask on, and I saw that they saw my smile and returned it, you know, and I saw in their eyes. And so I started a project called Mass Smile, asking New Yorkers to smile with their masks on, through their masks for me. And it's been a really, really rewarding series that I've been continuing to work on. I think I have hundreds and hundreds of mass smile photos of New Yorkers compiled at this point. I never know if you want me to look or not. I believe that, you know, a genuine smile shows in your eyes more than anything else. And yeah, and at this point, seeing all of the different smiles that I've compiled, you know, I can really see the sweetness in different photos, and I'm so grateful to everyone who shared that genuine smile with me. So my friend here gave me a great mass smile. Stay positive, man, okay? I'll see you later. So when I go out with my camera for these short walks, I'm wearing a mask and I keep a 6-foot distance, and you know, I approach someone usually with a wave so they can see that I'm trying to engage in conversation, and I ask them if they wouldn't mind if I photograph them while smiling with their mask on. Appreciate the energy that I'm trying to inject New York with, and I guess my hope is that they continue to smile at other people and kind of spread this, like you know, our own positive energy virus. As a photographer and someone who documents New York City and is a street photographer, it's been certainly a very interesting experience to go from trying to raise New York spirits with these mass smile photos to now the protest for Black Lives Matter.
It's crazy how it changes. It really is.
I feel connected. I feel connected to strangers. I feel connected to my city. I think certainly people will continue to smile. And I think, of course, it is important that we continue to smile through these difficult times.
Well, still to come, a medical first responder talks about his 9/11 experience. Plus, Haiti Adams tells us what's coming up on Wednesday's edition of Straight Talk Africa.
Be sure to join me on the next Straight Talk Africa. We'll take you to the movies as internet streaming giants battle for top billing and online audiences across Africa. We ask who's winning and who's watching. We'll also look at the growing demand for homemade stories by Africans, for Africans, and about Africans. We'll have it all right here on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In 2002, VOA's Ken Farabaugh, then a reporter for the U.S. military, visited Afghanistan in the early stages of America's 20-year presence in the country. As the United States ends its military engagement, Farabaugh follows up with those he met in those early years to discuss the U.S. withdrawal and the mission's legacy.
The U.S. military had been in Afghanistan just a few months when I landed at Bagram Airfield in May of 2002. On a reporting assignment for the American Forces Network.
Major Brian Cole with the United States Army Reserve and the 489 Civil Affairs Battalion.
I met Brian Cole while distributing supplies at a recently reopened school shut down by the Taliban prior to the U.S. invasion.
Welcome to the land of the giants sometimes.
In the remote village of Karbagh Bazaar, which, we were told, had just been cleared of landmines.
Because when we write letters home, we tell them that the people of Afghanistan need school supplies.
I look at what we're doing as an extension of our foreign policy of having the people come back from Pakistan and Iran back into Afghanistan. And if we're going to have the people come back, then we need to assist them once they get here to help them get established.
That same day, Cole delivered food to another remote village, all part of the U.S. military strategy to win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people.
And what we're doing by bringing the school supplies and the food now is we're serving as a stopgap until the non-governmental organizations can get here, until they can start taking over our mission.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It's been more than 19 years since I met Cole in Afghanistan.
How y'all doing?
After some effort tracking him down, I learned he safely returned home. We reconnected in July at Fort Boonesboro, outside Lexington, Kentucky.
I'm a state park ranger now, and I have like a phobia against trash, because that's one thing they were doing. They would take MRE boxes and put explosives in it, or just roadside trash would all of a sudden become a mine.
Despite the risk, Cole felt his unit's objectives were clear.
Our mission was to help two things: to gain support for us being there, and to put in water wells and things like that, and to help gain acceptance with the U.S. forces being there. And then also the bigger picture was to help gain support for the newly established Afghan government.
Cole believes the big picture lost focus when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003.
You can only have one main effort, and we tried to have two main efforts, and I think we took our eye off the ball when we did that.
The war in Afghanistan took a personal toll on Cole.
Show me 97 to the boat ramp.
His daughter was just a month old when he deployed, and his absence was difficult for his family back in Kentucky.
My wife, she never accepted me going, and we never recovered from that, and I ended up divorced.
Cole says he made sacrifices to build a better Afghanistan, but that mission was never accomplished.
I think a better way to say it is the mission's over.
Cole says the legacy of the U.S. military in Afghanistan is best measured by what didn't happen.
We were able to keep similar 9/11 attacks from occurring, and I think they would have had we not gone. You know, the training camps would have flourished even more so.
Which is why he feels the U.S. military should have stayed in Afghanistan, pointing to forces stationed in countries like Germany and Japan since World War II as a precedent.
If you leave too soon, you're back too early.
Cole has since retired from the U.S. Army. He says he has few regrets about his service in Afghanistan, but one is losing contact with his Afghan interpreter.
Hiya, Dad. I'm hoping I can track him down and maybe serve as a sponsor for him back here if he's able to come to the United States.
Why?
I loved him. I mean, he kept us safe.
Cole credits his interpreter with saving the lives of his fellow soldiers and his own.
What will you do if you can get him here?
Give him a place to live.
How do you think he would appreciate that?
Oh, he'd love it. We talked about that. We talked about him coming to the United States.
Cole still didn't know the status of his Afghan interpreter as the U.S. military presence in Afghanistan neared its conclusion, culminating in the chaotic exodus of tens of thousands aboard planes departing the Kabul airport. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Lexington, Kentucky.
In 2001, Justin Tigray, a fire and emergency medical services captain at the Arlington County Fire Department in Virginia, had been on the job only a few months. On September 11th, he was called to work after a plane crashed into the Pentagon. Jacopo Giuluzzi spoke with the emergency responder.
Justin Tigray, a fire and emergency medical services captain at Arlington County Fire Department in Virginia, was just 24 years old when a hijacked plane crashed into a wall of the Pentagon on September 11, 2001.
When you have a big event like that, 20 years sounds like a big number, but it doesn't feel like anything. It feels like it was just yesterday.
Cyril and his companions understood that the United States was under attack when they received the order to go to the Pentagon.
There was so much coming at us. There were people running out of the building. There was injured people. There was smoke and huge fire. There was fire trucks over there, police cars over here. There were reports of planes coming in. Evacuate. All right, go back in. All right, evacuate again.
The exhausting fight against the flames caused by the impact continued for hours. During that time, Tigray had to go inside the Pentagon to get to the roof. On his way up, he saw debris and parts of the plane. The smoke was so dense and overwhelming that Tigray thought he was not going to get out of there alive.
There was nothing but fire. And every time we sprayed water on it, it didn't seem like it was doing anything. It was just spraying water and it would just go into the abyss.
Tigray heard people screaming and crying and saw military personnel running outside. His team of firefighters refused to take breaks. Nobody wanted to leave. The images are still with him.
I'll never forget some of the people that I saw, the victims that I saw in there. Once we were helping to do some of the cleanup, we saw body parts of children, and knowing that there was more. That wasn't just a body. That wasn't just an inanimate object. That was a person with a family.
Well, that's it. Good night.